And rounding out our final session for today, I'd like to introduce Russell Sung as he discusses From Good to Great, a continuous experimentation workflow for mobile. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at the booth. I know it's the end of the day, so lots of places you could be, lots of things you could be eating, so I appreciate you taking the time to come hang out with me today. So we're going to be looking at some continuous workflows for mobile, right? So what does that mean? That means giving you the option as developers to really dig deeper into your data and understand whether option A is better for a card, for example, or option B is better for your audience. So let's take a look. So first of all, who am I? My name is Russell Sung. I'm a developer advocate here at Unity, and I'm so happy to be here giving you this talk at GDC. Super, super happy to be here for the second year, and I'm really glad to see some of my friends in the row here. I'm based out of Toronto, Canada, and if you're looking to follow up with some of the cool stuff that we're working on, powered by Unity is our Unity Gaming Services Twitter, and that is my Twitter as well. So let's get started. So first of all, what are live games, right? Why do we need this kind of A/B testing, this kind of deeper dive into what you're looking at, what you're working on? And that's because people and gamers today, they're really looking at games that evolve over time. They want content that is changing, updating. They want to be engaged with on these kind of like seasonal activities or new content to keep them engaged, new levels, new objects, and that's really why A/B testing is so important, because you need to understand the impact of your changes on your project. And I'm sure you've seen this before, but Unity Gaming Services is really here to solve that challenge, right? To help you build these live games in a single modular platform. And the modularity is really key because you might not need every single service, but the services that you do need, you can just pick and choose as and when you need them. So there's only the ones that you need and not anything else. So we have multiplayer services in here. If you've seen across the booth, we have a little booth to showcase each of those services. So if you're interested in getting a little bit more knowledge about game server hosting, there's a multiplayer booth here. If you're wanting to dig deeper later and come take a look at some of our other backend services, I'll be here. But also includes user acquisition and monetization. And so I just wanted to call out that these services are not brand new. They've been already incorporated in existing games, popular games that you already know and love. And so these services are battle tested, right? We've scaled these services to grow with these games, all the way from a couple hundred concurrent users to a couple 100,000 to a million concurrent users. I'm sure you've seen this slide again, but it's just a holistic view of all the services that we offer. I want to call out that user-generated content, something we're really excited about, is coming soon. Friends and Leaderboards is in beta, and that's what we're showing here. And again, Friends and Leaderboards is a great way to kind of put that socio-competitive feel into your game. So some of the stuff that we'll be talking about today will be in the game backend side of things. So authentication is kind of like the glue that holds the services together. So essentially, it's a way for your players to be recognized by you, the developer. So they have a player ID that gets generated. It happens seamlessly in the back end, so you don't actually have to make them sign up for any accounts or anything. They can start the experience anonymously, and then afterwards you can push them to that user sign-up flow. Cloud save, so this is something that we see a lot of developers are asking for, right? The ability to have persistent information for your players. So if somebody's playing on their laptop and they want to go to their mobile device, if you don't have a kind of way to offload those saves to the cloud and access them, you're going to lose that player persistence from mobile to your laptop or from console to PC. Cloud code. So this is a really awesome service that allows you to have this server-hosted logic. So for example, if you're playing an ARPG, right, and there's a loot table, you may not want that information visible to your players, right? You may want to hide some of that information. So you could host that loot table for those items in the cloud. And then you just have your game query when a loot drop should happen. In terms of economy, so if you're working in a game that has an economy, you're either going to be really good at database management or you'll need a service to help lift some of that load. And so economy is the ability to create, manage, and publish items in your game, either in-game currency only or also with in-app purchases. And it's from one convenient dashboard. So you may not have a monetization strategist in your studio, but with the ability to have all that information presented to you in a quick and easy format, it makes it a lot easier for developers. cloud content delivery. So Marvel Snap uses cloud content delivery so that they don't have to have every card and every variant on the device. So you just download the cards that you get, and then only when you need a new variant or you see a new type of card do you get that information streamed to your device. And push notifications. So this is the ability to let players know what's going on in your game from one seamless way. Reduces churn, right? Because you keep them engaged with new seasons and new items. And you're just letting them know what's happening in your project. So remote config at game overrides, that's what we're going to be looking at deeper today. Remote config is super cool because it allows you to deploy changes to your project without having to build it again and ship it to the asset store or the app places. So essentially, you'll see it here, but we're going to do some balance changes on the fly and deploy that. It's super, super useful with A/B testing and game overrides because you're able to dedicate a certain percentage of your audience to experience one change or the other. And so typically that would involve multiple services and you'd have to do some kind of translation between them. But with game overrides and remote config under Unity Gaming Services, everything happens together. So the demo that we'll be looking at is called Mainframe. It's a really simple collectible card game. You play against an AI with a ready-made deck, but you can edit them. It's meant to demonstrate these UGSs working together, right? So economy, cloud code, cloud save, and remote config. And so let's take a look. So as you can see here, I mentioned authentication is kind of the glue that holds everything together. So it's a quick and easy sign-in process. You'll see at the bottom that the user's been signed in as an anonymous ID. It's a collectible card game, so you have a deck editor, and you can see that this card here, which the name is Script, has a health level of 1 and damage level of 2. But let's say we want to change that. So if we hop into our mainframe dashboard, you'll see it under our live ops remote config. So every card in mainframe is actually held in this JSON file. And so if we want to change the name of this card, we can just do it here live. All right, you can see it's got a damage value of 2, health of 1. We can make it 1-to-1. We hit confirm. And so something that we've heard from our developers when we earlier published this is that they want to be able to see the change before they publish it. So rather than just having it only on there, we have it here as well. So now with the JSON, there's a lot more to see, but if you're only tweaking one value or a float, for example, it's a lot easier to see. So we can see that that configuration was successfully published. So if we go back to our project, and so the next time your user engages with your experience, either in the store or in the game, you'll see that the thing has been updated, live on the go, no patching needed, no downloading needed. It's a query to that server, right? So how does this work with A/B testing, you're wondering? Well, if we take a look at our Game Overrides tab, and we have this pre-configured A/B test, you'll see that I want to have half of my players receive a variant. So in this case, we'll call it Kraken A. And we want the other half of my players to get Kraken B. And so this is like a random assortment. It just takes your player base, and you can define that audience. But in this case, we've taken all existing players, and we're just going to put them in 2 buckets. Either they're going to get Kraken A or Kraken B. You can set a start date and end date for this as well. So automation is a big thing that we would definitely want to support. We don't want you to be doing everything manually. But if we go here and click Enable, you'll see that now this A/B testing is running. And a nice thing to see visually is that if you go back to the game overrides, you'll see exactly what's going on, whether it's active, whether it's completed, or whether it's running at all. And so now if we restart this experience again, so again, as if somebody's opening the game again, we'll go into the store, and you'll see that we've been selected into the B bucket. And so what's really interesting is you can combine this with our analytics tool to say, hey, every time somebody with the Kraken B card wins, let's send an event, and then we'll track that to compare against players in A. So that's how you have an A/B test to really identify which card resulted in a better experience for your players. And so now I'm going to hop into Matchmaker. So Matchmaker is essentially the way that you're able to pair your players easily against each other. I'm sure we've all had experience in a competitive game where you feel like either you're the best player on your team or you're the worst. And so Matchmaker helps you close the gap, so it makes it feel like a more fair gaming experience. Again, this is already in use by live studios and games, so you're not going to be the first one to be using Matchmaker. You'll see, as I show you later on the demo, how it'll integrate with the dashboard. It works right out of the box with our game server hosting, which is formerly known as multiplay, which means you're able to drag and drop it with an existing implementation of multiplayer without having to, like dig and break everything. It comes out of the box working with multiplay. It scales to your needs. So I can definitely imagine that you're playing a very exciting competitive game, but it's taking 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or longer to find a match because there's not enough players in your skill level. So Matchmaker scales to that so that it's able to dynamically allocate a better player pool so that you shorten those queue times. If you suddenly have a huge influx of players, if your matchmaking service is not handled or set up to handle that, you might have queues that don't even work. So your players can't even play ranked with each other. So let's take a look at how the matchmaking A/B would look like, right? So again, in the interest of time, I've created a already set up matchmaker pool. And I just want to call out that, as you can see here, all of the services have a really great overview, really easy to understand documentation, and a setup guide. And I can tell you because I've run through it to do it. So if you take a look at our queue system here, this is essentially the way to organize how you want your players in that queue, right? Like how many players should be on each team, how many pools there should be. So if we go to our pools right now, there's only one, and it's called ranked. So let's say we want to do an A/B test for this. So the reason why it says disable is because it's not currently linked to active game server hosting, but the workflow would be the same. So right now, after 40 seconds, it's going to time out, right? So let's say we want to have a test to see are players willing to wait 60 seconds. So we'll create a variant. We'll call it a longer queue, right? And let's say that times out in 60 seconds. We'll pick the same fleet that we were using before. And here you can really kind of dig deeper. So what if in this longer queue, you're willing to have more teams involved in that pool, right? You're willing to have 5 more players because you're waiting longer, you want to have more people involved in that game. And we hit next. So again, the feedback from devs is that they really want to be able to quickly understand what the difference is between what they had before and what they're changing to. So as you can see, I mentioned we're going to increase the number of teams and increase the number of players involved. And we hit create. And now you'll see that there's an A/B test, right? You can select with game overrides between should players get the default ranked queue or should they get this 60-second longer queue that might result in a better overall quality. And so last but not least, let's take a look at analytics. So analytics is so key even if you're a solo developer all the way up to enterprise, because knowing what your players are doing in your game, how much time they're spending, or their experience is so key to player retention, right? So what we've done is we've created the ability for you to have custom dashboards. And so what that means is if you look in our overview here for analytics, previously we've had the ability to have our kind of default dashboards, right? So game performance would be something like daily average users, daily active users, any new users. And so what we're really going for now is the ability to give you developers the option to create your own custom dashboards. So in this scenario, I've created a custom test. And so what's really interesting is that you're going to be able to compare the metrics that you care about. So in this scenario, we're comparing the daily active users with the number of sessions. So that kind of makes sense, right? Like as your daily active users goes up, your number of sessions of people playing the game goes up. But what if you wanted to, create something unique? So all you would do is you would go to create a new report, right? And so I've done one already that's session versus retention. So as you can see, you like comparing the number of sessions versus the number of players still in your game. But it's such a simple way to create a new one that if you go to Data Explorer here and you click, for example, a new report or even a new dashboard, you go here, and this is where you can kind of really get granular, right? Like if you're a big data person, you're going to be able to pick by either these default metrics or the ones that you create yourself. So for example, you could pick, something like number of in-app purchases compared to number of new users, and then apply that, right? And click share, or just save it, right? So we could call it IAP versus new users. If we go to our custom dashboards, and we want to add that metric that we just created, do it here. And you can put a significant amount, like it'll scroll. You can do as many as you want in the custom way as you want that are relevant to your project and your game, rather than just the default ones that we have. And so, I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to have more information, you can scan that. Thank you so much.